Yo, hey everybody, we got some Datamine cards. Now, shh, these are kind of a secret because we don't actually know if these will ever enter the game. It's all speculation. But Snap.Fan is an awesome resource that datamines new cards, locations, variants, and even details on the upcoming seasons. And they've been very accurate so far. And I think just seeing changes to old datamine cards shows that eventually these cards might join the game. It's just we don't know what version of them will actually join. But I have 4 here that have changed since I last did Datamine reviews, and I have 1 new card that I hadn't seen before, which is actually surprisingly in the game right now as a bug. We'll get to that in a second. So these 4, we have Zabu, the Sentry, Silver Surfer, and Shanna. I've already reviewed them, and these are the ratings that I gave them. As you can see, a lot of them are kind of underwhelming, maybe not very powerful. I also find their text quite wordy, which is something that Marvel Snap tries to avoid. Now they have some crazy effects that would have been really fun to see in Marvel Snap, but what's crazier is that their new versions are completely different. Aside from the art staying pretty well the same, the energy cost, the power level, and the text completely different. It's basically like we have 4 new cards to check out. So I'm not going to go over these. If you want to see my take on these effects, swing by the Datamine reviews of the past, but we're going to get into their new versions right now. All right, here we got 4 cards that are very likely to join Marvel Snap, maybe even sooner than later. I'll get into that in a second here. And then also Sentry from before. We're going to get to him in a second, so stay tuned. So first off, we have Zabu. His new ability is your 4 cost cards cost 2 less, minimum 1. This is an ongoing effect. Nuts. He's a 3 cost 2 power, but that doesn't matter. You're playing him for this ongoing effect. And discounts in any card game, I'm telling you, are the most broken thing to have. They will always find a deck to be played in and will probably just break the game. And here's some forecasts just off the top of my head that are probably broken with this, right? You have Wong setting up for some crazy on-reveal shenanigans. Dracula for discarding one of the cards from your hand, so you just get him out early. Sometimes he's a bit clunky to play. If he only costs 2, that's pretty easy to play. Strong Guy, Moon Girl, Shang-Chi, destroying a bunch of 9 cost stuff. You can easily play that on turn 6 with some other things. I just think Zabu is nuts now. I'm giving him 5 stars. All right, and then moving on to the new card that I haven't Datamine reviewed yet. This card is actually in Marvel Snap. I know, super weird. I'll have it right on the screen from my collection. If you go to the filters and then filter by unowned, and then filter by recent, it's going to put a bunch of the cards that you don't have. They're going to be all grayed out. And even like cards like Thanos and Galactus are going to be there. But you're going to find Sauron. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. That's like the Lord of the Rings pronunciation. But you're going to find him there, and he's got his full art. He's in color, but he has no effect. Well, Snap.Fan datamined his effect. So he's a 3 cost, 3 power. On reveal, remove the abilities from all ongoing cards in your hand and deck. I think that's really helpful that it's both. You have cards like Mr. Negative that only affect your deck, and it's a bit, I don't know, it's a little bit hard to pull off, right? But when you get both hand and deck, that makes it a lot easier. So basically, this is kind of like in the 0 deck. So 0 is a 1 cost 3 power, remove the ability of the next card you play. So it works really well with Typhoid Mary, Red Skull, these high power cards that you don't want their negative effects to hurt your game plan. So Sauron kind of does that for you as well. And I think it's welcome. That's why I'm giving it 3 stars. Overall, this is kind of underwhelming. It's only going to work in a few decks. But the problem with the 0 deck is you're really banking on drawing 0 and then playing 0 before one of those cards. Sauron gives you another option to do this, so you don't have to completely rely on just drawing 0. You can draw Sauron instead, so it just gives a little bit more flexibility. And that deck is pretty decent. Those are big power output cards that you can set up if you can remove those abilities. So I like this. I really wish it had something to do with dinosaurs though, or the Savage Lands, or raptors, or anything like that, but we'll take what it is. And getting back to where I think cards might be coming a little bit sooner than later, well, if this guy's already jumping into the collection in full colored art, who knows? Maybe he will. And if we look at some of these cards, just from an aesthetic point of view, you have a lot of like prehistoric cards here. Zabu is like a saber-toothed tiger. Sauron, he's got the pterodactyl, dino lover ability kind of guy. And then Shanna, it's right underneath Snap.Fan's logo, but she's the she-devil. She's like a cave woman. I don't know. I feel like maybe they're setting up for like a January season where it's like going back in time. There's already some BC variants in the game. That would be a nice setup to incorporate that. So stay tuned. I'm not confirmed, total speculation, but that would make sense to me. All right, and then we have Silver Surfer. So he's a 3-cost, 0 power, right? On reveal, give your other 3-cost cards plus 3 power. So I think this is pretty nuts for a few reasons. One, plus 3 power is one of the biggest swings in the game. We've seen it be pretty broken when you get plus 2 power to a card. So plus 3 just seems like a really substantial amount. Other thing is it has on reveal synergy, so you can play this with Wong or even Odin it later on in the game. And then the other thing is this is a 0 power card, and there are negative decks, Mr. Negative. So flipping this over, making it a 0 cost, and then maybe you have some other 3 costs that become 0. My only concern with that is I don't know how it would work logistically because now Silver Surfer costs 0. If you have to switch cards, let's say Magic, who's a 5/3, if she becomes a 3/5, does she now qualify for the Silver Surfer buff? My understanding is yes, but I'm not too sure on that. But regardless, I think this gets 4 stars. It doesn't quite get 5 because you can only play so many 3-cost cards after you play Silver Surfer, right? You play Silver Surfer on 3, then on turn 4, you can play 1 3-cost card. On turn 5, you can play 1, and then turn 6, you can play 2. So at most, you get 4. And if you do the math, that's 12 extra power, 3 costs for 12. That's really good, but might not always work out that way. It's not like you're going to run just 3-cost cards in your deck. I mean, maybe there's a deck that works like that, but I think he's pretty cool, pretty powerful, but not quite game breaking. I'm not going to give him 5 just yet. Okay, and lastly, I was talking about her earlier, but we got Shanna. So on reveal, add a random 1-cost card to each location. 4 cost, 2 power. So the one thing I'm not too sure about here is does it affect your opponent's side of the board? I don't think it does. There's cards like Debris that says for both players. So that kind of implies like she gives rocks to both players at locations. This isn't saying that. So I have a feeling it's just your other locations. I wish there was literally the word your. I think this is okay. 1-cost cards are on average going to have 2 power. So that ends up being a 4-cost, 6 power. And maybe they have some effects that are going to trigger. Because typically when a card is added, it's ability triggers. So that could be Iceman, who ices your opponent's hand, or it could be Blade, who discards a card from your hand. So there's a bit of variance here. Well, actually, there's quite a bit. You don't know which 1-cost cards. You don't know what effects are going to happen to you. But if you're running like a Kazar deck, maybe it works out. Maybe you get enough buffs. You need those extra 1-drops to jump out there. Another thing is with Destroy decks and Killmonger. Killmonger comes out and destroys extra 1-drops, making it easier to trigger death later on. But she is a 4-cost, and that might be a little bit too late. And you might not want to always put the 1-drops at different locations. Like if there's a location like the Space Throne where you can only have 1 card there, you don't want to play Shanna because then it's going to put a 1-drop there and your opponent can easily beat that. So there's location struggles, there's variance struggles. I think she's going to fall short in the meta, so I'm only giving her 2 stars. All right, last but not least, we have the Sentry. Look at this guy. The art looks pretty epic. And the Void. So he's a 4-cost, 8 power. Cannot be played at the right location. That's pretty interesting. Haven't seen that before. On reveal, add a -8 power Void to the right location. Wow. Okay, so you're probably thinking, why do you give him 4 stars? He's 4-cost, 0 power. That's the net gain. Well, yeah, kind of. But there's cards in Marvel Snap like Viper, right? Viper's going to give a card at that location to your opponent's side of the field. So that's almost like a Hobgoblin play on turn 5 for only 2 costs, and you get the Viper 3 power, right? You can throw the Void over. Or there's things like Cosmo that stop on reveal effects. So you just play Cosmo turn 3, play the Sentry, then you don't get that -8 power, and it's a 4 for 8, which is pretty good value. Even Destroyer decks. Destroyer destroys all the other cards on your side of the field. So maybe you stack Sentry on the location where it's protected with armor, and then maybe Professor X next turn, something like that. And then you play Destroyer on turn 6 and destroy the Void. There's a lot of ways to get around this. On top of other things is like Carnage, right, to destroy this card. So I think you can either destroy the Void pretty easily, you can move him over to another location, or you can stop the Sentry from casting out the Void if you don't want it to be out there. So there's a lot to like here. I think this easily gets 4 stars. Honestly, could even be close to 5-star territory, despite this wacky polarizing effect. I'm sure, I have no doubts that this can lose you many games. I'm sure it will happen. You play this, the void goes over, your opponent Professor X's next turn and locks in the void, you can't destroy it. Like something like that, right? It's a super cool card. Incredible art. I probably want this one in the game more than any others. And I love being location locked on certain cards. I think that's a really interesting mechanic that's in Marvel Snap. Very unique compared to other digital card games. So I'd love to see more restrictions based on the location placement. So there you go, guys. That is my Datamine review number 9. Go check out the past ones if you want to see some of the other Datamine cards that might come to Marvel Snap in the future. Every patch that drops seems to have a few of these, so I will continue to update you guys with the new Datamine cards, patches, all this news around Marvel Snap. You will see it on my channel, so be sure to hit subscribe. Appreciate you coming to hang out, and I will catch you guys next time.